Hey guys, and welcome back. It's Alex again. It is finally time to wire up the rear differential. And as you guys see, the car is complete disarray right now. And the reason for that is we have to fish the wire from underneath the car, through the interior, and head over to the driver's footwell area compartment. And what I've done is the brown wire is gonna go to this location right here, the ground, and then the brown black wire is going to go to the fuse box, and then we have a can low and can high over here, and this is kind of the mess that I've made so far. But essentially what I did is I tapped into the existing connector. This is the connector for the rear differential, and just extended the wires and tried to make them long enough to reach into the interior of the car. And the way that they're gonna enter the car is actually right over here. So this is the I believe that's the ABS sensor or the brake pad wear sensor. There's a little grommet there that we're gonna enter through, and we're going to come in through right here. And so from there, the wiring harness is going to split off and go to the ground, and then the rest of the wiring harness is going to go along the door over there into this mess right here. So we need to run it to the CAN bus connector, and this is the CAN bus system. And we're going to tap right into the connector for the CAN bus, and also we're going into this fuse box right here, into one of these spots, and that needs a 10 amp fuse. So yeah, basically we're going to have 3 wires, 1 wire running up and entering the fuse box into one of these spots, and then 2 wires, the CAN bus wires, are going to run over there to this CAN bus connector. So that is the plan. For now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run the wire under the car into the interior and leave it there for now, put the trunk back together, and then continue on the rest of the interior and continue on wiring. So it's a little bit dark, so it'll be difficult for you guys to see, but I'll show you guys kind of the end product, and yeah, one step closer to having an all-wheel drive car. Hey guys, so we did it. We finally put together, or should I say rerouted, the wiring through the car, from underneath the car, through a grommet, into the car, and now we have the ground hooked up, and here it is. I used the factory grounding location just like how it says in the factory manual. As you can see, my little splice job right there, and then tucked neatly, running neatly along the factory harness. Now coming over here, this is the wire, and it's going through the same grommet here. So I made sure it's not too tight on the bottom. I'm gonna zip tie it a little bit more. I found a grommet right here going inside the car, and through here. So through here, I cut a little notch in here, just like that. We see the ground wire heading that way, and the rest of the wires are heading over here. So these wires are going to run along the sill plates into the front, but for now we are done with the trunk. So I'm going to put it back together and move on. Hey guys, so this is where we are right now, and you should be able to see these are the wires that we ran from the back into the front. And if you look through there, this is going to be the wire that's going to run to this fuse right here. So I've ran it through right in here, zip tied it all the way. And these two wires are going to run to the CAN bus module. These are the looped CAN bus wires that are going to run to the CAN bus module. So let me show you how I did this. Sorry for the mess. But essentially, you can see right here, I taped up this wire and ran it through the existing wire harness, and then under the carpet and behind the sound insulation here, all the way down through there, and through here, and ran it up into there following the factory harness. I realize it's a little bit dark, but that's basically it. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to wire this guy and click it into the fuse box first, and then I'm going to route this wire to the CAN bus connector beside the multimedia head unit, and then put everything back together. As you can see, we have pretty much everything out. I wanted to make sure that I had enough space to do all of this. This car does have a knee airbag, so I had to remove that to get easier access over there, but that should be no problem. So I'm gonna wire this up and I'll show you guys the end product. Hey guys, and as promised, here is the finished product. If you take a look, we have the whole car assembled. I have some of those cover plates at the bottom there for the steering, power steering module. I'll put that together, not a huge deal. But if you take a look at that closest 10 amp fuse right there, that is exactly the fuse for the all-wheel drive control module that lives on the rear differential. And then the other two wires, they went up to the CAN bus module. You can't tell from here, it's basically above this airbag. You see the airbag there, it's above there, very difficult to show, but essentially I ran the two wires to pin 16 and 6 of the CAN bus module, and 16 and 6 also corresponds with the ABS system. So makes sense, right? The way that this all-wheel drive, the rear differential works is the rear wheels will kick on only if the front wheels are experiencing slip. At least that's how the factory was designed, so it makes sense that the all-wheel drive differential is tied into the ABS system. But as you can tell, we have the whole car back together. So now let's move on to the angle drive, or the transfer case. It's been leaking, so let's take it apart. We are now working on the transfer case, or otherwise known as the angle drive. So essentially the way this works is the engine, or the transmission, sits over here, the engine sits directly behind, and the transmission differential basically lives right here and powers the angle drive and powers the axle on the other side. And then in here there's another gear that basically angles the power to the rear of the car. So over there is the rear of the car, and this is the, I guess we can say, axle that goes directly through there, and this part right here goes directly into the front differential. And the way that it's secured is with this little bolt, and you have to feed the tool directly through here in order to unscrew it from the other side, actually, and this actually seals the transmission fluid from coming out. And so this is the tool that I devised. I think this is a 3/8 inch drive up to here that basically allows you to access the bolt
inside there. But anyway, you might be asking, why do I have the transfer case of the angle drive here once again? If you guys remember, I put this angle drive onto the transmission and installed it with the car, so why is the angle drive on my toolbox once again? And the reason is it's actually leaking. If you can tell right there, I guess you can't see very much anymore, but it's leaking from around there. And so I'm here to rebuild it. I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to rebuild it, and so that we can seal it up so it's not leaking anymore. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start we'll first have to remove this, and then we have to remove the plate underneath, and we have some new parts over here. I got all of these parts from ECS Tuning, and something that I did off camera is actually replace some components here. So if you guys can see, this is a roller bearing. There's 2 of them right there. Replace those, and there's also a seal that lives right there. This is the old one. I removed them, and there's also a circlip actually right there. So you remove the circlip, you lift it out, and then you try to shimmy these roller bearings out, and then eventually get the seal out. And so I replaced all of those. The one thing that I have a question of is, you guys can kind of hear that it doesn't sound very smooth. I'm not sure if it's supposed to, but that's exactly how the other bearings were sounding. So I'm not really sure what's going on here, or if it's normal, but the angle drive seemed to not be making any big noise or any grinding noise or anything like that. I just figured while you're in there, we'll just replace them. So that's relatively simple. If you're wondering how to take this guy actually out, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to remove this little bolt. And then from that point, I just basically pried and pried and pried, and eventually it came out all the way. Hey guys, so we finally did it. We took this thing apart. As you can see, this, I believe, is where this was leaking. I don't feel any imperfections here, but I have a new O-ring to go there just in case. And that used to live right around there, and it was, I believe it was right here that it was actually dripping down. That happens to be the bottom. So we took it apart, but in the meantime, here's another gasket that came with this unit. Kind of looks like a water pump from here, to be honest, but you can tell it's not. No damage, no visual damage at least. Don't really see anything wrong with it. A couple little bits and pieces in there, and everything seems to be working correctly, so no reason to suspect any kind of damage. But yeah, what I'm gonna do is I have this seal here, And then I have this seal as well. I think it might go right here. I'm gonna have to take it out and take a look. So hopefully by replacing these seals, that'll get rid of our leak. We can fill it up to the desired specification. The only real trouble I had actually was removing this thing. I'm gonna call it a sprocket. I don't know if there's a better name for this, but this is like the tail shaft, I guess you can call it. And I took some claws right down there, and I took off the bolt that was here. I tried to remove it, I could not, and so I ended up taking the bolts out and yanked on it, and eventually it all came out. Not a huge deal. I don't believe it's leaking behind there. I think, yeah, there's definitely a seal behind there. But I gave it my best shot. It's not an easy thing. And also, this Harbor Freight tool, this is a Harbor Freight tool. I got it for like 20 bucks. This shaft up here is made out of some really soft metal. So I was going to town on it and it was already starting to weaken the threads. So I don't recommend it. I would like for this shaft to be not so soft, to be made out of actual steel, maybe even carbon steel or galvanized steel, but yeah, this is clearly not designed for anything heavy duty. But yeah, so that's what we got going on. And from this point forward, I'm gonna seal this surface as well, just to make double sure. And what I'm going to use for that is the same thing I used to combine the transmission together, and that was that transmission silicone looking stuff. In other news, I also polished the pillar trim here. If you guys have one of these, or if you guys have ever seen these on the road, this was never gloss. It was always kind of matte, and with time it kind of gets oxidized and looks kind of gray and not very pretty. And if you look at my Audi S8, I really like the way this looks. If you stand back, it almost looks like it's part of the window. So I decided to do something similar to the Jetta. I saw on VW Vortex how someone did this, and I decided while we're waiting on parts, I'm just gonna do that. It's really relatively easy to do. I took them off, and the way you do that is essentially you roll down the window, you peel back this trim. Behind there's 2 screws, and then you pull it out from this side. The opposite is true on the other side. You peel back this trim, roll down the window, 2 screws, pull it out, and over here behind this right here, there's 3 Phillips head screws. You pull those out and the piece comes out. I think it looks awesome. What do you guys think? I think it's not chintzy at all. I mean, it kind of looks factory. So yeah, guys, we're nearing completion. I am excited. I hope you guys are too. The diesel, all-wheel drive, automatic, lifted on Tiguan suspension, Volkswagen Jetta sport wagon. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be cool. Let me put this thing back together and we'll start putting it back in the car.